Hey, in this lesson, I'm going to go over why you need to start reducing the amount of seed oils that you're consuming and the things that you need to put in your body instead so that you can be leaner, meaner, and significantly healthier moving into the future. All right, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Dave Morrow. I am the most veteran-friendly, ruggedly handsome, biggest deadlifting dad on the internet. And I'm going to be talking to you about your nutrition and why you keep on getting fatter even though you think that you're doing all the right things. So let's get into it. The crux of today is going to focus around the one thing that you need to stop putting in your pie hole, which is polyunsaturated fatty acids that are found in seed oils. These things are ubiquitous. They're everywhere. They are found in everything from crackers to tasty cakes to literally the spices that you use on your steaks at night. So let's get into why they're so bad and what you need to do in order to start fixing that. So first things first, what is a fatty acid? What's a polyunsaturated fatty acid? So let's dive back into my organic chemistry training back in the day and let's bring it down to like a grade 9 level so that you can get on board with what I'm talking about here. So if we look at fat, it's essentially made up of fatty acids. Fatty acids are the building blocks of a fat. There's different types. So let's look at two different ones. We're looking at saturated fat and unsaturated fat. Saturated fat is simply a fat that if you look at it at room temperature, typically it's solid. Things like butter. Unsaturated fats would be ones that are liquid, like let's say olive oil. So what's a polyunsaturated fat? Well, a polyunsaturated fat gets down to the actual molecule itself. So if we look here at the picture that I've got up on the screen, a saturated fat has a bunch of single bonds, so they're harder to break. An unsaturated fat has double bonds in it, which we can see here. Polyunsaturated fat just has more than one double bond. And the reason why that's important is that those double bonds are easier to break. When those bonds break, they can start forming what's called free radicals. So a free radical is something that can start acting kind of like a grenade thrown into a bunch of your cells and can start screwing them all up. So we don't want that. So we're going to look at how to eliminate those and how to keep them in check through your nutrition. So the first things first here, if we look at what is an essential fatty acid, the reason why they're essential is that we need to actually consume them. You cannot get a fatty acid like the essential ones we're talking about here just by synthesizing them endogenously, so inside your body. The two that we need are omega-3 and omega-6. You've likely heard of both of these because they get marketed to you all the time. So where do you need to get those omega-3 and 6 sources? Well, from foods. There's a whole bunch of foods that have them. And I'm showing you here just a quick list of good fats and bad fats from Dr. Kate, who's a great reference point. Dr. Kate, I hope that one day you get on the podcast. Good fats come from things like olive oils, avocado oil, butter, fatty fish, etc. Bad oils are what we find in seed oils. Well, what's a seed oil? Things like soybean oil, cottonseed oil, hydrogenated oil. These are the things that are typically found in processed foods. So let's dig a little bit deeper as to why we need to avoid them and what they're doing to your body internally. So like I said, the essential fatty acids, we need to consume them. And when we're looking at polyunsaturated fatty acids, we need them. Okay, so they're not all bad. Omega-6 fatty acid is not bad. It's just in too great a quantities. The research is starting to show that it looks like it's causing a huge problem when it comes to inflammation. On an aside, if we increase the amount of omega-3 fatty acids compared to the amount of omega-6 fatty acids, it looks like that is what we're lacking and that's what we need to focus on. So let's dig into that a little bit more. Our brain is actually made up of a significant amount of omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids. Omega-3 and 6 fatty acids, and there's a whole bunch of other omega fatty acids, they're responsible for creating a whole bunch of different precursors to hormones and cofactors which help your body work. They namely affect things like mood, inflammation, pain. So you can see that if this system is out of whack, you're going to be fatter, grumpier, and in more pain. So we don't want that. So let's figure out how to get there and actually improve ourselves so that we don't have to worry about these cascade effects from eating crappy food that leads to poor health. typically when we're looking at the normal ratio of omega-3 to omega-6, we want to have about a 1-to-5 ratio of omega-3 to omega-6. Most North Americans, in contrast, actually consume a 1-to-15 or a 1-to-20 ratio. And that seems to be the issue right now, that our ratio of omega-3 to omega-6 is way out of whack. Okay, so why are polyunsaturated fatty acids that we find in seed oil specifically so damaging? Well, they're industrialized. So these oils that we actually consume now that are in basically all of our processed foods were actually used in industry before they were put in our food. Things like linseed oil are used right now. You can go to the hardware store, buy it to varnish tables, floors. Cottonseed oil, these are all used in industrial processes. They're used to like lubricate gears. They were never intended for human consumption, but some smart guys realize, hey, these oils are crazy cheap. Why don't we also put them in food? And now we've got an issue. So the reason why these are actually pretty damaging, because if we look at just, let's say, flaxseed oil, not a good oil to be consuming. However, if you consume flax seeds, it's not inherently bad for you. There's a lot of good omega-3 fatty acids in there and omega-6. The issue is that when you industrialize something and you process something, you strip away the natural seed's ability to protect you from damage from omega-6 because you no longer are consuming the whole food. So you've processed it. So it just goes into your body as omega-6, and that is not a good thing. You need to have a balance. Remember, we talked about ratio. Not only that, it breaks down really easily. So that double bond, remember that I mentioned at the beginning of this lesson, it breaks down super easy when you just get that omega-6 in. So it creates free radicals. Free radicals, like I said, are like a grenade in your cells, and that can cause a whole host of oxidative damage. We don't want that. And then the crazy thing is that these accumulate in your fat cells over time. Studies have shown that human beings at around the turn of the 20th century had about 2% of these polyunsaturated fatty acids in their fat cells. We're now up to about 30% in our fat cells. That's not a good thing because it actually prevents our fat cells from actually being used. And therefore, we have a very hard time of actually metabolizing fat and using it as a fuel source. No bueno. And so that leads us to the positive feedback loop, which is causing us to increase inflammation, which inflammation increases obesity. Obesity then increases inflammation. And then you can see you're now in a positive feedback loop that causes a whole host of issues like type 2 diabetes, cancers, you name it. The majority of illness right now in the West is caused by inflammation. If we can reduce inflammation, we can reduce things like diabetes, Alzheimer's, you name it, because they're all linked to chronic inflammation. And by doing this one thing, like eliminating seed oils, we could potentially have a massive impact on our health. Now, what do we need to do in order to do that? So if we look at some of the foods here, we're going to look at the good foods again and bad foods to be eating when it comes to oils and polyunsaturated fatty acids. We need to focus more on those that have a good ratio and that are not processed. So the main ones that you want to consume are simply fatty fish, things like salmon, things like mackerel. These are great. Walnuts, these are really good. Another thing you want to ensure that you eliminate are the seed oils. Where do you find those seed oils? They're everywhere, man. Like I said earlier, get them out of your diet. That might be the only thing you need to do to lose 5 to 10 pounds. And this is the first step that I ask everybody that comes through my program to do on week 1. Eliminate those crappy oils and you may see a massive change in your health. Okay, so in order to start moving forward, what do we need to do? I have 3 steps for you. So pay attention. We got to have normal foods in our diet. So when you go to the grocery store, avoid the middle aisles. Those middle aisles typically have all the stuff that is going to cause a whole host of shit to go on in your cells and cause poor health. What's on the outside? Well, typically we have things like fruits and vegetables and meat. Great. If you're going to pick an oil, make sure that it's avocado, make sure that it's or olive oil or coconut. Those are my 3 main ones that I have in the house. And if I'm cooking, those are the 3 that I use. Or if I'm just eating them straight up, that's what I put on my salads. All other oils, get rid of them. If you have them in the house, get rid of them. Give them to your friend. Well, actually, no, that's not cool. Next is you need to ensure that you don't eat anything from a box. So crackers, chips, you name it. You got to get rid of it. I'm sorry. That's not going to happen for the next little bit. You got to ensure that you get your body to a point where it no longer relies on these crappy foods in order to provide you quote unquote energy. You need to perform a hard break from these foods. And then lastly, like I said, you got to get enough good food that has a high ratio of omega-3 to omega-6. And if we're looking at top foods here, walnuts, chia seeds, wild salmon, herring, anchovies, flaxseed, sardines, and mackerel are kind of the go-tos for omega-3. Now, there are other plant sources of omega-3. I'm just not going into them right now, but start doing the research. There are plenty of foods with ample omega-3 levels. So one thing you need to do is increase the omega-3 levels that you're consuming, but also decrease the amount of omega-6 that you're consuming. And these foods are a great way to start. Okay, so if you're looking for more information like this, the best way to find it is to subscribe, hit the bell, make sure you like the video. But additionally, come check out my BE.A.S.T program. BE.A.S.T program is where I am teaching individuals to eat better, train better, and ultimately become better humans and veterans in the future. So the link is down here in the description, and I'd love to see you there and start my free trial and get yourself into BE.A.S.T mode. All right, stay tuned for more like this, and I'll see you on the next one. Train hard, fight easy. Peace.